We're here at historic St. Paul's Chapel on Broadway. This is where the truthers are flocking. We're going to go out there and meet them, talk to them, and we hope that some of them have developed, after 7 years, a narrative of the events of 9/11/2001.
I saw what happened on TV. To me, it didn't make any sense.
I'd like you to tell us if, at long last, your side has developed a narrative for what actually happened on September 11th, 2001. If you mind just fleshing it out for us, give us the sequence of events.
I mean, there's more than one narrative. I mean, the group isn't like one person has like the whole story. Everyone has a couple different ideas of what happened, and no one's sure, and that's the main problem, is that the answers haven't been, the questions haven't been answered.
What questions in particular trouble you?
One question is, why did the World Trade Center 7, that was not the two Twin Towers, was demolished? It fell straight down like this. So that is one of the main questions, because that wasn't even mentioned in the commission report.
Okay, well now, as you know, NIST has just released its final report on World Trade Center 7. It's a very comprehensive report, and they explain that it came down due to fire. They apparently minimized the effects of the diesel fuel tanks, but they found no evidence whatever supporting the demolition hypothesis. Now, have you looked at that report, or are you planning to?
I haven't, but I plan to since you told me about it, because I researched every aspect about it, and that's one of the main things that everyone should do, is investigate it, to just for their knowledge, not for us to tell them this is what happened. I want to tell people to go investigate it so they could find out more about it and find out that there's still questions unanswered about it.
Oh, that's fair enough. Do you have any other questions that stand out in your mind as particularly troubling or unresolved?
Right now...
9/11 was an inside job.
Right now, I can't think of that many, but I'm sure I can if I have more time.
The canard that pull it means blow up the building has been literally exploded. It is not a demolition term, except as insofar...
What about the rest of the buildings? The first responders saying on record.
Pull it means attach cables.
Why did
it's
the
done.
BBC skew Larry Silverstein's statement about
They didn't.
Pull it? Yes, they
Why
did.
did-
No, they
Yes,
didn't.
They did. Hold on. Yes, they did. They cut the end of
Larry
his statement off.
Silverstein said-
Can you just admit that on the BBC that they cut the end of his statement
No.
off? Yes, they did. They
Larry-
cut the part where he said, yeah, they cut, and we watched the building collapse. They
Yes.
cut that out of the BBC.
Yes, he
completely.
did say that.
That completely ruins the context of the quote.
Okay, now-
ruins the context. You guys are liars. You're disgusting. BBC should be ashamed of themselves.
I don't work for the BBC. Looking for someone 7 years after the fact to tell me what happened 7 years ago. Give me some kind of coherent narrative.
A coherent narrative. Well, basically, there's evidence that shows that 9/11 was an inside job. I mean,
What is the evidence?
well, for example, I mean, the commission, the head of the commission said it was set up to fail.
But the 9/11 Commission didn't investigate the actual collapses of the buildings. It didn't identify. The 9/11 Commission was a political commission that was simply there to answer questions.
You know what? John Kerry.
Because the NIST report got it right.
John Kerry said...
Joenko got it. That's Joenko's cockamamie theory. Joenko has no study.
Kerry said? John
Kerry doesn't know anything about the subject.
He told him that they pulled that building as a demolition
cannot...
for safety reasons, which is exactly what you just said.
Let's keep trying this. Pull does not mean blow up the building to a demolition expert.
Wrong.
No, it isn't.
Wrong.
I've called 24 demolition companies. You've called 0.
Even on the
Yes.
what's the point of a computerized
controlled demolition. When you could have a building fall on its own symmetrical blueprint with floors popping out one by one because of a fire. So it just blows a computerized control.
World Trade Center 7 fell so symmetrically that it heavily damaged a building across the street.
But you know that NIST said that it can't explain what this event that occurred before the building collapsed. There was an event that occurred there in own documents. They say they can't explain it. Why can't they explain it other than collaborated eyewitness testimony?
You do know that NIST just released its final report on the collapse of World Trade Center 7.
Well, the computer simulation is based on nothing. It's an animation. There's no simulation there at all.
Are you planning to read the report?
I have read the report.
The reason demolition specialists think there were no bombs is that there is no evidence in terms of detonator caps, bits of wiring, no evidence whatever. 7 years after the fact, tell us a narrative. Tell us exactly what happened on 9/11/2001.
Well, I don't know, but more and more what I can say is that the new facts that keep emerging, new eyewitness reports, new scientific reports, just that the official story just becomes more and more false. So,
be a little more specific. What new science do we have?
Yes, for example, well, science-wise, actually, let me just start with something that just came unearthed the other day. There was a fellow, I forget his name, but it's on 911truth.org, who worked in the Los Angeles airport on 9/11 through security. He had heard two things. One was that through other, apparently, I wasn't there, but communications to personnel, they first heard that Nora was told to stand down from the highest office in the land, including the White House. There was that, and then the second thing he heard was the first reports is that the plane was shot down in Shanksville, and the story changed. So there are things like that. He presented this, and there are other persons that corroborate that story. Who knows if it's really true, but there are other persons corroborating, and it just adds more against the official story than for it.
Okay, now you do know that this business about a stand down has been pretty heavily debunked. For example, if there was a stand down, why would the plane in Shanksville be shot down? You can have one or the other, but not both, obviously.
Disobeyed the orders.
Why?
Because they were good patriotic Americans who suspected, I think, that they were being betrayed by their own government. That's what I think.
Now, again, we're looking for a narrative. Why would the government do this?
Well, we've had a history of false flag operations going back to the 1960s. We have Operation Northwoods, which was
Operation Northwoods was a wacky plan. Lyman Lemnitzer he was laughed out of the room for this plan. You can't use a plan that wasn't implemented.
To use it. We have other things. We have Adolf Hitler in the past in Germany. He used the Reichstag. He burned his own Reichstag to blame.
No, he didn't burn it. A mad Dutchman burned it, and the Nazis blamed it on the communists. And
it was basically Goring did confess. I think it was the Nuremberg trial. That basically it was an inside job by the government, and it created a great amount of intolerance by the German people, and they were.
Can you think of an American false flag attack?
Well, what about the Gulf of Tonkin?
Well, that's yes, but it's obviously not a false flag attack in that there was action in the Gulf of Tonkin the day before the famous incident. There were.
It's the news we've been getting from that day to this. Seems to have so many holes in it that it's like Swiss cheese for news.
See, Johnson exploited the Gulf of Tonkin incident. What he said, his famous quote was, "Those stupid sons of bitches were shooting at flying fish." So in other words, he understood that the sailors were reacting to blips on a radar screen. Nobody staged anything.
$4 trillion were printed out of thin air by the Federal Reserve. And it's just ridiculous.
The architect, who is a top architect called Richard Gage, has come out and produced a video called Blueprint for Truth, Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth.
We just did a debate with Richard Gage against a debunker named Mark Roberts. Gage was handled very, very roughly, and quite frankly, the man has never designed anything bigger than a gymnasium. Is it possible for the fire department to be unwitting dupes? In other words, they think the buildings fell down through natural causes and there were really explosives and they just couldn't figure that out. Do you think that's plausible?
Absolutely.
Okay, so in other words, you don't think they were in on it?
No, I don't.